Vivian always hated these industry summits. The room was filled with loud voices, fake laughter, and businessmen who measured respect by the size of their wallets. She adjusted her fitted gown, forcing a polite smile as another tired handshake came her way. Her family's company depended on her presence, but deep down she felt caged, as though she didn't belong among the wolves in expensive suits. Then she saw him, and he stood across the hall, commanding attention without trying. His tailored navy suit hugged his broad shoulders, his wristwatch gleamed under the chandelier, and his smile, God, that smile, looked like it could melt steel. When his eyes met hers, it was as though the noise around them faded. For a second too long, neither of them looked away. Vivian's chest tightened. She reminded herself that she wasn't here for distractions. Her family needed contracts signed, not hearts broken. But when Tund crossed the room and extended his hand, her pulse betrayed her. Vivian, right? His voice was rich, deep, and confident. I've heard your name whispered around these halls more than once today. She arched a brow. Good things, I hope. His grin widened, playful, almost daring. Dangerous things. She laughed, surprised by her own reaction. Something about him felt both thrilling and dangerous, like standing too close to fire and daring it to burn you. The more they spoke, the more the distance between them shrank. A drink turned into two. Their laughter sounded too intimate for two strangers. And when his fingers brushed hers as he passed her a glass, the spark that shot through her body left her breathless. She told herself it was nothing. Just summit banter, just a man who knew how to flirt. But as the night wore on, she couldn't shake the weight of his gaze, heavy and deliberate, as if he was memorizing every inch of her. By the time she slipped out of the hall and into the hotel's balcony for air, she wasn't surprised to find him already there, waiting. His tie loosened, his eyes dark with something far more dangerous than business. The balcony air was cooler than inside, but Vivian's skin still burned. She could feel his presence before he even spoke, the soft scrape of leather shoes against the tiles, the warmth of his gaze on her back. You looked like you needed an escape, Tun's voice rolled low, almost teasing. She turned, crossing her arms as though that could shield her from the pull he carried. And you followed me out here. Not very professional, Mr. Tund, he finished for her, stepping closer with the kind of confidence that made her heart thud. And forgive me if professionalism isn't the first thing on my mind right now. Vivian forced a chuckle, but her throat felt dry. She should have walked away, excused herself, reminded him and herself that this was business. Instead, she leaned back against the railing, testing how far he would come. He didn't hesitate. He closed the gap until she could catch his cologne, something expensive, intoxicating like cedar and smoke. His shoulder brushed hers lightly, deliberate enough to make her pulse race. Do you always stare at women like that? She asked, her voice softer than she intended. Only the ones who look back, he said smoothly, eyes locked on hers. Her breath hitched. For a moment, neither of them moved, caught in that dangerous space where a glance becomes an invitation. His hand brushed against hers on the railing, not quite holding, not quite letting go. The air between them pulsed with the weight of what could happen if she leaned just an inch closer. Vivian's mind screamed caution. This was reckless, foolish, but her body betrayed her, leaning into the warmth of his touch. She felt his thumb graze her skin, sending sparks up her arm. A door creaked open behind them, breaking the spell. Voices drifted from inside, reminding her they weren't alone in the world, even if it felt that way in his presence. She pulled back quickly, her chest heaving. I should get back, she murmured, adjusting her gown. Tun's lips curved into a knowing smile. We both should. But somehow, I don't think this is the end of our conversation. As she slipped back into the hall, her heart hammered. She told herself she would avoid him for the rest of the night. Yet even as she mingled, she could feel his eyes following her, every glance stolen, every smile a promise of something she knew she shouldn't want but couldn't resist. Vivian told herself she wouldn't see him again. She had tried to bury the fire in her chest with work, bury the memory of his voice with the noise of the office. But the truth was simple. Tund lingered. Every night when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the ghost of his thumb brushing her hand, the weight of his gaze that made her knees weaken. So when she ran into him again, this time at the hotel bar, the night of the summit's closing party, her resolve cracked. He sat alone, jacket off, shirt collar unbuttoned, a drink in his hand like he owned the world. And when his eyes found hers across the room, that same smile curved his lips, the one that had haunted her for days. "Leaving without saying good night?" he teased as she passed by, his tone daring her to stop. Vivian froze, then slowly turned, her pulse hammering. Good night would have been the smart choice. "Then why are you still standing here?" His voice dropped lower, coaxing, intimate. She hated how easily he disarmed her, how her carefully built walls melted every time he spoke. Against her better judgment, she slid onto the stool beside him. Their conversation was casual at first. Business, travel, the polite things people say when they're pretending not to think about kissing each other. But the way his knee brushed hers under the table, the way his eyes kept dropping to her lips, made it impossible to pretend for long. "Vivian," he said finally, her name rolling off his tongue like it was meant to be whispered. "Tell me to stop." Her breath hitched. She should have told him. She should have stood up and walked away. But instead she leaned closer, her eyes betraying the answer her lips couldn't form. And then it happened. His mouth claimed hers in a kiss that was everything she had feared and wanted at once. Hungry, unrestrained, but achingly tender. The world around them vanished. The clinking glasses, the laughter, the music. None of it existed. There was only the heat of his lips, the way his hand cradled her jaw, the way her body leaned into him as if it had been waiting for this moment all her life. When he finally pulled back, her lipstick smudged and her chest heaving, Vivian could barely find her voice. "This is a mistake," she whispered, though her trembling hand still clutched his shirt. Tund's eyes burned into hers. "Then let's make it again." Vivian's lips still tingled from that kiss, but she had sworn to herself it wouldn't go further. It was a slip, a dangerous lapse in judgment, one she could still bury if she was strong enough. Yet when she left the bar that night, she found him waiting in the hotel corridor, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his eyes dark with a promise she already understood. "You could walk past me," Tund murmured, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Pretend tonight never happened." Her pulse quickened. The hallway was quiet, the dim golden lights painting shadows against the walls. She should have turned away. Instead, she stood frozen, every nerve in her body screaming with want. "But if you step inside," he continued, tilting his head toward the door beside him, "you'll never forget it." Vivian's breath came shallow, her fingers clutching the strap of her purse. Logic begged her to leave, but desire, raw and relentless, dragged her forward. Before she could stop herself, she brushed past him and into the room. The door clicked shut, sealing them in their own dangerous world. And then his hands were on her waist, pulling her flush against him. His lips crashing into hers with a hunger that stole the breath from her lungs. She melted against him, her body betraying every protest her mind had ever made. Her gown slipped from her shoulder under his touch, his fingers tracing fire across her skin. She gasped, clutching at his shirt as though she might drown in the rush of heat flooding her veins. His kiss trailed from her lips to her neck, down to the hollow of her collarbone, leaving her trembling, undone. "Tund," she whispered, her voice shaking, caught between fear and longing. "Say my name again," he demanded softly, his lips teasing her skin. And she did, over and over, until the name became a plea, a confession, a surrender. Their passion was reckless, unplanned, yet achingly inevitable. Every touch was a battle, every kiss a victory, every moan a secret carved into the night. By the time the sheets tangled around them, Vivian no longer cared about tomorrow. In that moment, there was only his body against hers, his voice in her ear, and the dangerous truth she could no longer deny. She wanted him not just with her body, but with everything she was. The morning after, Vivian woke tangled in sheets that still carried his scent. For one blissful second, she let herself believe it had been a dream. But then she turned and saw Tund half asleep, his chest rising steadily. His arms stretched out across the bed as though even in sleep he refused to let her go. Her heart squeezed. It shouldn't have felt so right. She shouldn't have wanted to stay. Yet she lay there longer than she meant to, memorizing the way his jaw clenched even in rest, the way his lips curved like he was holding on to some secret joy. By the time she slipped out of bed, her gown wrinkled and her hair undone, reality had already begun to claw at her. The summit was over. She had a business to run, a reputation to protect. This, whatever this was, had no place in her world. But her resolve shattered that afternoon when her phone buzzed. A single message glowed on the screen. Dinner. Tonight. No excuses. Her lips curved before she could stop them. And so it began. Secret nights stolen between meetings, hotel rooms where moans drowned out reason, laughter that felt more intimate than love itself. With every encounter, their passion grew wilder, more reckless. Vivian told herself it was just lust, a dangerous distraction she could walk away from when she wanted. But deep inside she knew it was already more. The truth hit her like a slap the night she followed him outside the restaurant. His phone rang and his tone shifted. Firm, weary, softer in a way she hadn't heard before. "Funk, I told you I'll be home soon." Vivian froze. The name burned in her chest like poison. Funk. Not just his wife. Funk, the ruthless CEO of the rival company that had spent years trying to crush her family's business. Her stomach twisted. The man she couldn't resist belonged to the one woman she despised most in the world. And in that moment, Vivian understood the cruel price of desire. She had handed her heart to the enemy's husband. Vivian sat in her office. The city skyline stretched wide behind her glass window, but her eyes were fixed on nothing. Her mind replayed his voice over and over. "Funk, I'll be home soon." The name alone was enough to rip the air from her chest. She should have cut it off. She should have blocked his number, erased his messages, buried the memory of his touch. But every time her phone vibrated, her body betrayed her, trembling with the hope that it was him. And when it was, she couldn't stop herself from answering. "Vivian!" His voice rasped through the receiver that night, low and urgent. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she snapped, though her tone wavered. "You're married." To her, of all people. This was a mistake. Was. Then his voice firm and unyielding. "No. It was the only thing that's ever felt real." Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to throw her phone across the room, but when he showed up at her door minutes later, all her anger melted into the fire of his gaze. He stepped in without asking, his suit jacket already discarded, his tie loose as though he'd been rushing just to get to her. "You don't get it, do you?" he growled, pinning her with a look that burned hotter than any touch. "Yes, I'm married." Yes to her. "But you?" He took her wrist, pressing her trembling palm against his chest. "You're the one who makes me feel alive." "Stop," she whispered, but her voice cracked. "Say it, Vivian. Say you don't want me, and I'll walk out that door." His breath was ragged, his hand cupping her jaw now, forcing her to look into his eyes. Her lips trembled. She wanted to say it, to end it. But instead, her silence betrayed her. Her eyes closing as his mouth crushed hers with a desperate, consuming kiss. Clothes fell carelessly across her living room floor. Her protests dissolved into moans, her fury into trembling need. Every thrust, every gasp, every whispered plea was war, between the woman who knew better and the lover who couldn't let go. And when it was over, when her body still quivered beneath his, Vivian understood the cruel truth. She couldn't escape him. Tund wasn't just desire anymore. He was love, the kind that ruined everything. Vivian stared at her reflection in the mirror, her lips swollen, her skin still tingling from his touch. She had tried to fight it, had told herself 1,000 times that what they shared was reckless, doomed, forbidden. But every time Tund touched her, her body betrayed her, and now her heart had too. She didn't hear him at first when he entered her bedroom, only the faint sound of his footsteps. But then his arms slipped around her waist from behind, his lips brushing the curve of her neck. She shivered, her eyes fluttering shut as his voice rumbled low against her ear. "You can't keep running from this," he whispered. "From us." Her throat tightened. "Tund, if anyone finds out." "Let them," he cut in, spinning her gently to face him. His eyes burned with a fire that made her knees weaken. "I don't care about them. I don't care about her. All I care about is you." Before she could respond, his lips captured hers, fierce and unyielding. Vivian melted, her hands tangling in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, hot and consuming, until her back hit the edge of the bed. He lifted her effortlessly, laying her down as though she were the only thing that mattered in the world. His mouth traced a path of fire along her collarbone, down the slope of her chest. She arched beneath him, gasping his name like a prayer, like a sin she no longer wanted forgiveness for. His hands explored her as if he was memorizing her, every curve, every tremor. "Tund," she moaned, her voice breaking with need. "Say it again," he growled, his lips brushing her skin. And she did, over and over, until her voice dissolved into cries that echoed through the room. Their bodies moved in sync, a desperate dance of hunger and surrender. Each thrust tore down the last wall she had built. Each kiss branded her deeper with the truth she had fought so long to deny. By the time the sheets clung to their sweat-drenched bodies, there was no turning back. Vivian lay against his chest, trembling, her heart pounding in rhythm with his. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was falling into sin. She felt like she was falling in love. And in the silence of the night, as his hand stroked her hair, Tund whispered the words she had been too afraid to believe. "I'm yours, Vivian. Always." The morning sun crept through the curtains, spilling across tangled sheets and bare skin. Vivian stirred against Tund's chest, her body sore, her heart strangely light. For one fragile moment, she let herself imagine a life where mornings like this were normal, where love didn't come with the taste of guilt. But reality never stayed silent for long. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it lazily, but when she saw the name flashing across the screen, her blood ran cold. Funk. Tund stiffened behind her, his arm tightening around her waist. "Don't answer it," he said, his voice low, urgent. Vivian swallowed hard. "She knows." The phone stopped ringing, but seconds later a message appeared. Vivian's hands trembled as she read it aloud. "I hope you enjoyed your night with my husband. Meet me at the office tomorrow. We'll settle this, woman to woman." Her chest constricted, shame and fear warring with the fire still burning in her veins. She turned to Tund, eyes wide, voice breaking. "She knows. She's going to destroy me. Destroy everything my family built." But Tund only cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. His gaze burned, steady and unshaken. "Let her try. Vivian, I'm done hiding. I don't care about her empire. I don't care about her threats. I want you. Only you." Her heart twisted painfully. Could she really risk it? Risk her name, her business, her family's trust, for a love that began in shadows and sheets? "I can't lose you," he whispered, his lips hovering over hers. "Say the word, Vivian. Say you're mine, and I'll burn every bridge to stand beside you." Tears blurred her vision, but her body leaned into his, her lips trembling against his kiss. It wasn't reason that answered him, nor fear. It was the truth she could no longer deny. "I'm yours," she breathed, even as the world around them threatened to collapse. And with that she sealed her fate, caught in a love that could either save her or destroy them both.